Welcome back to How to Souls. My name is Rach, and today we're going to do a guide on what the flip do all these little symbols mean on my weapon in Dark Souls Remastered, because I know this was one of the first things that really put me off this game. I just did not understand what any of this meant. So we're just going to start from the very beginning, and we're going to cover stats. So as you can see on your status page, there is, if you press, what's this button called? It used to be called the back button on the PS2, I'm sure. Anyway, press this button to give you an explanation, and I do recommend familiarizing yourself with the icons and like sort of what each stat means. So Covenant, yeah, level, yeah, souls, we get it right. Vitality, HP, attunement slots. You're not going to see these, and endurance, sorry, with the feet. You're not going to see these on weapons, but you will see the following: strength, right? Wielding powerful weapons, so like heavy weapons, look at it that way. Dexterity, advanced weapons, so like quick weapons, think about that. So like strength is the arm, dex is the hand. Resistance, ignore that, nobody cares, it's a crap stat. Intelligence is a candle for wielding sorceries, and obviously the power of sorceries. Faith is the star, okay? So these four: strength, dex, int, faith. Get used to these symbols. So strength being the arm, dex being the hand, int being the candle, faith being the star. Okay? So knowing what those means will help you sort of understand your weapon stats as well. Over here in the middle column, we have weapon attack. It's pretty self-explanatory, but also defense. So physical defense, magic, you'll see has the blue, flame with the fire, and lightning with the lightning. With the lightning. You know. Over here, poise, your ability to receive attacks without breaking form. You'll find poise on armor, so don't worry about that for weapons. Bleed, you will see, is a little drop of blood. Poison, a purple drop. Curse, a skull. Okay, so now that we know what those mean, we can go across to weapons, right? So starting off firstly with this screen here, your weapon like equipment. So picking a weapon, you can see on the far left, that is the weapon's physical damage. And then one column along, it's magic damage, and then it's fire damage, and it's lightning damage. So I confess, because I am right at the start of this game, I actually only have physical damage weapons, but I'm sure you are smart and you can imagine, use your imagination, that some might have values in magic, fire, and lightning. The next icon, the sort of like pale icon with the breastplate and the sword on it, that is durability. So weapon durability will decrease just as you use the weapon. As you can see, I've been using the bandit knife, so it has decreased from 200 down to 159 because I've been using that. Most have 200. You've got things like the Uchi katana, which are quite low. So you want to bear that in mind, that if you're using a weapon with low durability, for example, like the Uchi, you'll probably want to purchase like the repair box from the blacksmith. So you can see the durability there. And the last one that sort of looks like a rock at the far right, that is the weight. So weight is very important in this game because you can't just be fat rolling all over the place. It'll get you nowhere. So you do want to make sure that your weapon is, so for example here, Claymore, 6, right? If you are equipping weapons that are super heavy, you need to level your endurance. So do bear that in mind. That is their weight, and you can compare weights on there. So if we press X on an Xbox controller or square on a PlayStation controller, we can toggle display, and it brings up this nonsense, which can be super overwhelming. Don't worry, I get it. That's why you're here. So we're just going to break it down. So starting with the bandit knife, at the top we have attack type slash. There is slash, thrust, strike. Some enemies are weak to certain attack types, like for example, heavily armored enemies are weak to strike, but strong against slash. So there you go, you can see what type of weapon. I think most of the weapons I have will be, oh yeah, regular. The last one is just regular. There's thrust. Thrust obviously good for like range. If you find a thrust weapon, they tend to have a good like ranged attack. It's a short bow, just says none. It's a bow. Strike on the shield. Yeah. Sorry I don't have a bigger like variety at the minute, but it goes without saying. Weapon type daggers. So that is going to come in handy when you are starting to look at what weapons turn into what boss souls. So you can refer to that weapon type if you're looking for example, a dagger, straight sword, like great sword, you know? Because you wouldn't think, oh, the claymore is a great sword. It is. There you go. Weapon type at the top there. Moving on to the first left column, the attack. So like we saw before on this screen here, we have physical, magic, fire, and lightning. Okay, so it breaks it down for us. The left column is the weapons base attack. So it'll have a base attack. This one has 56, okay? Ignore the critical at the bottom for now. We'll go over that in a second. But yeah, left column is base. That will increase as you increase the weapon level. So for example, bandit knife base is 56, but if we get bandit knife +1, it might be like the 59 or something like that. I have an Uchi katana here, +3. The base has gone up to 116. I think the +1 was like, +0 was like 90 something. Anyway, so left column is base damage. The right column, where you can see the plus, so here we have +17 and then 0, 0, 0. That is scaling bonus. So that will be, I'll go into scaling now, actually. We'll go into that now. So every weapon has, as you can see in the next row down, a parameter bonus, but it's basically, it's scaling. So some weapons are going to scale better from dex, as you can see in this bandit's knife here. Remember, we learned that strength is the arm, dex is the hand, the candle is in, and the star is faith. So as you can see, we have a B scaling in dex. Now, the order, because it's Japanese, is S is at the top, and then A, B, C, D, and E is at the bottom, okay? E is still scaling though. It's still going to take into account something. If it's got a line through it, it has 0 scaling whatsoever. So S, A, B, C, D, E, slash nothing scale. Yeah, so Bandit's Knife mainly scales off of dex, but it does have a little bit of strength bonus. If you see this is when you recognize, if you see an S or an A or a B, this is when you think, right, this is a weapon that will benefit from me having a lot of one stat. There's like no weapons where you'll have like S or A or B in 2 stats, really. I mean, B maybe, if it's fully upgraded, but tends to, so if you see something like this, so you should be able to look at this and go, this is a dex weapon, you know? Let's see if I have, right, Claymore. Right, Claymore is perfect example. So Claymore is a quality weapon. Now what that means is it's got a C scaling in strength and in dex. But yeah, so when you see something that has like C and C, that is when you go, right, I should be leveling my strength and my dex at the same time. You will get a very big bonus from having around, say, 30 strength and 30 dex, much more than if you had like 50 dex and 10 strength. Although you couldn't wield this sword with 10 strength, so that doesn't matter. Anyway, scaling. Uchi katana has no strength scaling, but does already have a B in dex, so we get a big dex bonus. Ignore the minus. The minus is because I can't actually wield it because I don't have the strength requirement. Let's explain that. So every weapon, required parameters, right? So we have parameter bonus and required parameters. The bandit knife, 6 strength and 12 dex. Now these are in a nice white because we have those stats. I've got 9 strength and 19 dex, so they're nice and white. But if we go down to, where's the claymore? Right, so I do not have 16 strength. So that strength, the requirement is in red, just so you know it's not being hit. You cannot wield a weapon without the right requirements, because as you can see, it's going to do vastly like less damage. We've got that minus 83 in the scaling, so it's going to do like 20 damage, if that. It's going to be really, really unwieldy. You're going to throw it around like you're going to stagger while you're using it. You want to make sure you're hitting the required parameters before you use a weapon. It will give you a little prompt, like if I do this, it says unable to wield this weapon effectively with present stats. If you have enough to two-hand the weapon, this is a different conversation entirely, but it will tell you wield this weapon with 2 hands for the required effect. And that is because you can two-hand a weapon with 75% of the strength requirement. So That's what that means. Back to the dagger. Okay, so we've done parameter bonus. We've done required parameter. Always have the right, you know, stats to wield the weapon. If you see any of those required parameters in red, so a lot of these are strength for me. All the strength is all red because I've been leveling decks. Then yeah, you wanna level that up. Okay, so damage reduction percent. Just go over that really quickly. So this is how much percentage. So as you can see, 45% physical, 10% magic, 30% fire, 30% lightning. This is how much you will block when you are using this weapon with two hands and blocking. So yeah, 10% magic. You do not want to be blocking a spell with this weapon. But that is just how it sort of shows you, you know, it does have block value. That physical block isn't too bad. That's not too far off the physical block on my flipping shield. Oh no, my shield is 78, never mind. I give this target shield a real hard time then. Yeah, so that is showing you how much you will block, basically. At the bottom there we have stability, which is 26. Now stability is a stat you will see very high on shields, although these shields it's not very high. It's not high at all. You want it to be about like 70. Well, 70 is very high actually now that I think about it. Anyway, it's higher than it is on a weapon anyway. And that is because that is the amount that... So when you get hit, right, it takes stamina to block. If you are blocking and you get hit, it costs stamina. The stability is how much stamina it takes. The less stamina it takes, the less likely you are to exhaust your stamina. If you exhaust your stamina, then you are knocked over. You will start taking health damage from the block. It's a bad time. So you want high stability on a shield. You're probably not going to be blocking with a bandit knife, but if you're using something, a two-handed weapon like the claymore, see, that does have a bit higher stability. It's got much higher physical fire and lightning block. So like if you are two-handing a weapon, it's worth looking at the damage reduction stats, because in a pinch you might have to block with it, and some two-handed weapons have pretty decent block values. So that's what you need to look at, damage reduction percent. Yep. I did not cover critical, so time to talk about the little critical rating there. So critical attacks are backstabs and they are riposts. It also kind of counts if you hit an enemy while that enemy is trying to dodge you, or while that enemy is in the middle of attacking you. Technically that is also a crit, but for keeping it plain and simple, it's backstabs and riposts. Ripost, of course, being after a parry. So the bandit's knife has a super high critical, and it's got 147. Normal weapons you will find have 100. 100 is like the base. But every now and then you will find a weapon like the bandit's knife that has a higher critical attack. So you maybe want to have one of these on hand if you're learning how to parry. There's some enemies, like for example the Black Knights or the spear wielding hollows, that are much easier to dispatch with a parry. You maybe want to have one of these on hand if you know, it's going to do a lot more damage. Or if you're playing online and you're getting like invaded, have a wee bandit's knife on you, just to take advantage of the extra crit. But that's what that means. Moving on, at the bottom left we have Ox effects, so I guess Ox is auxiliary. As we saw before on the stats page, we have 300 in bleed. Now bleed obviously is, well, this has 300, so every third-ish, depending on enemy resistances, every 3 to 4 hits on a low resistance enemy, there will be a bleed. Now bleed is like a huge chunk of damage that comes off all at once. It's very satisfying just seeing the health bar just drop off a cliff. And 300 is a decent amount of bleeds. The rest of my weapons have like none. Uchi has 300. If it's a bleed weapon, it tends to have 300. I'm sure there are more that have slightly more or slightly less, but 300 is pretty standard. Some weapons, very few weapons, have poison effects on them. Some of them do. I know the Gravelord sword has poison, where if you hit an enemy enough, it gets poisoned, which is pretty cool, so that's poison. The next two, now we have the white ring and the black ring. Now this is divine and occult. Divine and curse, basically. So I don't... Sugar. I should have picked up the Astora straight sword to show you guys. So divine is what you're going to look for. Astora's straight sword has it. I'll make a separate video on that. I'll link it for you here if you're interested. Divine is what it hits undead enemies for more. But mainly, down in the catacombs, the respawning skeletons will not respawn if they are defeated with a weapon that has the divine modifier on it. So most there's very few that just have it on by default, but you can make a weapon into a divine weapon at a blacksmith. So that's what gets you divine. But yes, the black ring is occult. So if you find a weapon or ascend a weapon and it has occult damage on it, that will do extra damage against like holy enemies. It's very few enemies in the game, but it's like black knights and silver knights, that sort of thing, like holy enemies. It does extra damage against them. That's what it means. You find an occult club in Anor Londo that you can actually change from, because divine weapons turn into occult weapons. Basically, if you find a weapon with these like rings on it, you probably know what you're doing. And if you don't know what you're doing, there will be a video on that at some point. But that's what the Ox effects mean. And lastly, in the bottom right, we just have durability and weight, as you can see, obviously, in the regular screen as well. It shows you them again here. But that is what all of the stats mean in your weapon equipment sort of view. I realize it is so overwhelming, but I hope I have helped to make it a little bit more understandable for you. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the comments below. I really like getting comments, especially when they're nice. I mean, if you have constructive criticism, then that's cool too. But yeah, if I can help with anything, please let me know. Let me know what other videos you'd like to see. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video. Here's a couple of examples on the screen now. See if you like those. Take care, and I'll see you next time.